Hi, my name is Justin Long-Moton, and I would first like to thank you for extending the invitation to have me come speak at this year's Democratic Republic of Congo's annual Development Summit. This evening's brief will likely cover points regarding your country's development that you are already familiar with. Please understand that the points made are not an attempt to condemn your government for their actions or inactions for that matter. Rather, it is my hope that through my own examination and analysis, the true issues causing the stagnation and development in the DRC are highlighted, and in response to this stagnation, practical adjustments made known that your government can begin implementing. To begin, let me first run down the topics I will be discussing in this evening's brief. To start, I will cover the development indicators and how they relate to the DRC. Next, I will delve into the specifics of some of these indicators, covering the Human Development Index, Gender Development Index, and Gender Inequality Index. After considering the specifics of the state of development of the DRC, I will shift my focus to presenting an argument on what perspective would be most suitable for the country's government to promote development. I will then familiarize you to the international development actors that may support the country's national government in its pursuit of development. Lastly, I will conclude the brief and open the floor up for questions. Development indicators. The graph on this slide depicts how the DRC compares to the rest of the world in the 5 development indicator categories. They are Human Development Index, Inequality Adjusted Human Development Index, Multidimensional Poverty Index, Gender Development Index, Gender Inequality Index. The slide here provides a brief description of each that you can read along with as we continue on with the brief. You'll notice that the DRC on all of these indices except the GII falls well below the world average. Now let's look at a few more specifically. Beginning with the Human Development Index. The HDI was created to emphasize that expanding human choices should be the ultimate criteria for assessing development results. Economic growth is a mean to that process, but is not an end by itself. The HDI scales 1 indicates a high level of economic development and 0 a very low level. HDI is measured in 3 dimensions of human development: a long and healthy life, access to knowledge, and a decent standard of living. A long and healthy life refers to the life expectancy at birth, and for the DRC, this is 59.1 years. Access to knowledge is measured by mean years of education among the adult population, which is the average number of years of education received in a lifetime by people aged 25 years and older. DRC, 9.8 years. Standard of living is measured by gross national income, or GNI, per capita. For the DRC is 680. Figure 2 shows that between 1990 and 2015, the DRC HDI value increased from 0.356 to 0.435, an increase of 22.3%. However, when comparing the HDI to other sub-Saharan countries, the DRC still comes up short. When considering the 5 development indicators, my biggest concern is largely centered on where women fall in the development spectrum. Looking at Gender Development Index, which measures the differences between male and female achievements in 3 basic dimensions of human development, is evident there is a large disparity between men and women in every dimension except life expectancy. Men are receiving a significant amount more education and seem to have control over majority of the wealth. The GDI proves that women in the DRC are being disenfranchised and in many respects excluded from crucial parts of society. Further validating this point, we can look at the Gender Inequality Index. The Gender Inequality Index reflects gender-based inequalities in the 3 aforementioned dimensions. The DRC has a GII value of 0.663, ranking it 153 out of 159 countries in the 2015 index. The DRC, in the DRC, 8.2% of parliamentary seats are held by women, and 14.5% of adult women have reached at least secondary level education compared to 35% of their male counterparts. Again, here the disparity between men and women in the DRC is evident. When addressing gender issues in DRC's conflict affected areas, the fact that conflict negatively affects women and men in different ways and results in gender specific disadvantages must be taken into account. Gender inequality reflects power imbalances in social structures that existed in pre conflict periods and are exacerbated by armed conflicts and their aftermath. The foundational tenets of development theory, that being modernity and dependency theory, are rooted in gendered preoccupations and conceptions. Modernization was and continues to be connected to the image of the industrialized man within a male-dominant public sphere. Modernization is ultimately a masculine version of modernity, which pushes women toward the periphery, rendering them invisible as they relate to development. However, there is need to reconfirm and reassert the role of the woman in the DRC, specifically as it relates to development. Though corruption continues to hamper DRC development prospects, it remains widespread and is taking a heavy toll on public service capacity to deliver key services. I believe this is not the main factor lending to the stagnation of the development process. Rather, I believe it is the exclusion of women. In looking forward, the key to development, in my view, is the fusion of women and the environment. Mining between 500,000 and 2 million people are believed to work informally in non-mechanized or small-scale mines in the DRC, where workers endure a range of labor and social problems and widely publicized rights abuses. 1 in 4 women in mining towns self-identified as sex workers, and 4 in 10 reported having to trade sex simply to gain access to work or basic goods. In maximizing the wealth in the earth, women are being disregarded and abused substantially without let-up, when in fact increasing women's access to agricultural inputs also would improve women's livelihoods and increase food security in households. In establishing a new direction for development through alternative theoretical perspective, I urge the government to lend real credence to the Women, Environment, and Development, or WED perspective. The WED perspective originated in the 1970s as feminists drew parallels between men's control over women and men's control over nature. Essentially, it focuses on the need for women's involvement in strategies and programs aimed at sustainable development. In third world countries, women naturally know the environment better, and thus they should operate in roles like environmental managers, capable of harvesting from the earth to maximize gains. The gender division of labor in these countries has forced women to provide subsistence for their families while men seek profit-earning strategies. Women's involvement in environmental movements starts with the daily work and activities in their lives and the threats to the health of their families. Women's responsibilities make them closely dependent on and give them distinct interest in natural resources. Typically, men control and dominate occupations directly involved with the use of land, plants, animals, forests, and the waters. Their work often eclipses women's contributions to natural resource management and work in these communities. Too often, policies are formulated without consulting the women who continue to be an integral factor in environmental resource management despite their invisibility in the public policy. Policy formulation is more an outcome of male priorities in culture and traditions act to exclude women from active participation in decision making. However, women's knowledge about animals, plants, land, and water often goes unnoticed by agricultural development agencies and other personnel. As a result, projects initiated where women may be the primary actors, are limited in determining the activities of the course of the project. Therefore, it's crucial to place a deliberate emphasis to integrate women into the decision making policy, formulation, project implementation, and evaluation. Who best to assist in the development of plans to better utilize the land than the very women, in many respects, who know the most due to their natural connection to the environment? Who will help the DRC? Foreign aid for the DRC has come in a variety of forms and from a slew of actors. While actors like the World Bank and USAID have funneled billions of dollars into various development projects in the DRC, spanning from agricultural initiatives to production of hydroelectricity facilities to harness the power of the river, I rather look to one NGO that is doing work that indirectly supports the woman, environment, and development theoretical perspective. That NGO is Women for Women International. Women for Women International is an NGO that has been operating since 1993 and has helped more than 478,000 marginalized women in countries affected by war and conflict. They offer support, tools, and access to life-changing skills to move crisis and poverty to stability and economic self-sufficiency. Supports the most marginalized women to earn and save money, improve health and well-being, influence decisions in their home and community, and connect to networks for support. In the Eastern Congo provinces, Women for Women International has served more than 95,000 women. There are two things I would like to highlight regarding the accomplishments of this organization in the DRC. First, following the graduation from the Women in Women International program, women report average personal earnings of $3.29 per day compared to $1.46 per day at enrollment. This is truly important because while women in the DRC are primarily responsible for the day-to-day purchases their families need to survive, they have no right to keep or manage the money that they earn. Women's inability to freely manage their own finances is a particularly critical component in their lack of representation in the government. Due to the lack of financial resources needed to run for political position, women candidates are largely kept out of the government. Second, women influence decisions in the home and community. Nearly 100% of participants report participating in households' financial decision-making at graduation, compared to 64% at enrollment. Participation in family decisions and at the local level translates to realization of identity and self-worth. Women for Women International operates under the mantra, "We believe strong women build strong nations." Aligning with an international aid actor like Women for Women International that believes in empowering women will certainly help the development of the DRC. In conclusion, examination of the 5 development indicators shows that the DRC has a long journey ahead of it. A masculine-derived push for modernization will not bring this country out of the gutter, nor will endless dollars of international aid pumped into aspirational development projects cut it either. Emphasis needs to be placed on what is already there. Countless minerals, boundless lands for harvesting, and most importantly, strong women, competent and aware of the needs of this country. Women's responsibilities make them closely dependent on and give them distinct interests in natural resources. The inclusion of these women, coupled with efficient environmental management, will undoubtedly lead this country toward greener pastures.